Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarjun. I'm a data science trainer, a lecturer, and an industry practitioner in this field, and a mentor to the youth. This is the 10th in the series of basic R programming course. Before we start, I would like to seek your request to follow me on my socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Send me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Yeah, so with that, let's move into today's segment, right? Okay. Yep. Okay, so let me prepare my screen here. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at functions. So one of the most important topics of any programming concept, functions. So today I'm going to be covering three types of functions: built-in, user-defined, and anonymous, right? So let's talk about built-in functions. I think you've already come across built-in functions a lot of times. So you looked at for the functions where the functionalities are already defined in R, they're known as built-in functions. So we are looking at functions like cat, readline, type of, length. You've already done this before, right? Min and max, I'll be covering them today, but yeah, you've already done things like this before already, right? So just take a quick example of a built-in function, right? Let's just use the cat function to print good morning. Okay, my screen is a bit jumpy today. Okay, print using the cat function to print good morning and John as two separate elements and set the n to /n value. Okay, so this is just what we usually do, right? Usually, this is how we print. I think this shouldn't be new to you, right? First element is good morning. Second element is, okay, let me put a comma here just to be consistent. And then second element is John, right? And then, not forgetting the END option, set it to /n, right? And then we run it, you get good morning, John. Simple, right? Okay. The cat function takes in parameters known as SEP, which determines the space between the elements when printing the results, right? So the default is a single space, right? You can also try different ways of changing all these things. So one good example would be I can use cat, right? I can do good, not goof morning, good morning, right? And I can do things like comma, I can do John, and then I can do END. So this is basically I'm doing the simplest one first, so that I can just copy and paste throughout, make it easier for me, right? So I can do this, right? And I can do cat just to show a distinction between the other versions, right? /n. Okay, I'll keep that for later, but for now I'll try different versions, right? I can add another parameter here, sep equals to empty space, right? Comma, I can do that as well. I can do another version where my sep is actually my separator. In other words, it's the same as the end command, right? What happens then, right? We can also try that out, right? I can also do a /t, which is tab separator, right? SEP is equal to /t instead, right? We can also try that out, right? So as usual, I'll copy this and I'll paste this here, here, and here, just to split them out. So the first one, good morning, John. This one, simple one, good morning with a space. The second one is empty string, so there's no space here anymore. That's the only difference, right? There's no space here. The third one is /n. So the first element is printed on the first line. John is printed on the second line, right? And then there's another space here, right? And then the last one, good morning, and then there's a /t, means there is a tab separation between them. So this is 4 spaces, a tab separation between 4 spaces. Yeah, so that's one way of how you can do that as well, right? Okay. The type function returns the data type associated with the object. So in a sense, type of actually returns the data type of the object. So you can create a variable name with the value John, right? And then you can do my list, right? You can do my list and create a list of vectors with John as the first value and his age, 36, as the second value. And then you can do a type of. So you will let me do a print type of, right, name, and then you can do a print type of my list, right, to see what they are. So you see one is a character, the other one is a list. Okay, quick practice. Assign a vector variable new vector with 14, 18, 17, 15, and 28, right? Use the max function to find the max value and store it as max value. Use the min function to get the minimum value and display both the max and min value. Okay, pause the video and try it out, and we will come to that very soon. So how do you answer this question now? So basically, new vector. Okay, remember, you need to create a vector variable, because if you want to do max and mean, they all have to be in a vector variable, and they all have to be of the same data type. Right? You can't do it on a list. If not, you'll have issues. Right? And then we find max value simply is equals to max of new vector, and mean value, which is equals to mean of new vector. That's all, right? And then you cat max value and mean value, right? END equals to /n. Yeah, that is 28 and 14. These are the two values. The max value is 28, the mean value is 14. Okay, moving on. User defined. As the name suggests, these are functions that can be created and defined by the user. The name and the function can be customized as much as possible. Any predefined R keywords are not to be used as a function name for consistency. When creating a function variable is assigned with the function with required parameters. The declaration function with the name of the function assigned with the function, and the parameter in parentheses. So what I mean by this, right, is this. So let's see how we create a function, right? It's a bit weird. So let's say we want to create a greet function. I call it greet, right? This is my function, and this is the function keyword, right? I use the function keyword, and then I say, whenever I call out greet, I want you to print for me, hello world, the most common one, right? And then I will call out the greet function with the two parentheses. So when you call out the function, you need to explicitly input the parentheses. That's important. But when you define it, there's no parentheses. So notice the difference, right? When I run this, there's hello world. Okay, wait, there's supposed to be an exclamation mark here, which I didn't include. So never mind, let me run this again. Exclamation mark, right? Hello world. Okay, the use of functions also make it possible to take in user inputs from the user, then define a function input print to perform two actions. First, create a variable name through user input of the name value. Second, to print out hi as the first element and name as the second element to call out the input print function, and then use to enter his name. So let's try what this is about. So basically, input print is basically a function, right? And open bracket, close bracket, and then you tell it to, okay, when this function is called out, I need to call out to require a prompt. Okay, please enter your name, right? And then I need you to cat with hi as the first variable, person name as a second variable, END equals to /n, right? That is all. Let me add some spaces here for clarity. Okay, but then nothing happens because I'm not calling out the function, right? I'm only declaring the function. So let me put an input print with two parentheses. Now what happens? Okay, so it says open parentheses and close parentheses. It says enter your name. So let me put John. Hi John. Simple. So that's how it works. It takes in the parameter and then adds hi and John to it. Okay, then define a function greet this time with the option to take in a parameter value name. The function will use the name parameter in the print function. The hello will be the first item, and the name input as second item, and welcome to the show as a third item of the print function. Okay, there's a typo here. Print function, right? The name parameter of the greet function is a required input. Then function greet to print a greeting whenever the function is called out with the parameter. So how do we do that? Let's see the steps. So firstly, you need to create the greet function. So greet is equals to function that takes in this. Earlier we didn't have any inputs. Now we have a name that goes in, right? So it's once the name goes in, it's going to print out hello with the name, right? That goes in. Welcome to the show. And notice that here the name is local to the function, right? So whenever the information goes in to this function, any input can go in as a name, right? It need not be name, could be anything that goes in. So it's better to use like because the word name is local to the greet function, right? So here, let's say I externally call out for a name, a person name, but this time around I'm saving it under the variable person name, right? And then I do a prompt, right? So person name is going to store, enter your name, right? Person name is going to store that, right? Now I'm going to do greet, okay, and I'm instead of the name, because it requires a name now, right? I'm going to pass in person name. So person name is equals to name, right? Logically, right? But I'm just going to pass in person name, right? And I'm going to do a cat, yeah, just to show you the different versions that can be performed here. So one is greet person name. The other way is obviously explicitly stating that name is equals to person name, right? And then, right, that's one way. Obviously, another way I can do it is I can greet name anything. I can put anything as the name as well. It need not be person name. It could be anything, right? Anything can be the person name. So now when I run this code, it's going to ask me for a person name. Let's say I put John as a person name, right? It says, hello, John, welcome to the show. The second one is also, so these two is going to say, hello, John, welcome to the show. But the last one is saying, even if I put anything into the name, hello, anything, welcome to the show. It's going to work that way, right? So that's how flexible functions are. It takes in anything as long as it's a valid input, right? Okay, the use of function is usually associated with a return option. The previous examples explicitly prints the output. There can be situations when the results need to be stored as a variable instead. So the return keyword option. Then define a function addition that takes two input parameters num1 and num2 and adds them. Then calls the function by passing two values 2 and 8 and assigning to a new variable some value, and then we print the function out. So let's see what is this return function, right? So return function, this is something that's important, and usually you do it when you have, especially things like addition, when it makes sense, right? Earlier we are just doing some printings, right? We are not doing any num2. So we pass in two variables, right? Num1 and num2. So we do an add. So inside the function it's going to add num1 plus num2, right? And then it's going to return add, right? So what I can do is I can call the function. I can say some value. I can say wait, addition of two values. Let's put 2 and 8. So it's going to add 2 and 8. So 2 and 8 are this value is going to return the value, add into this some value, right? And then I'm going to print some value. 10. Right? So that's how this works, this return function works. Okay, what if there is supposed to be a return function, but you do not add the return function, as in you do not put the word return there, right? What happens, right? In this case, when I remove this, and then I do have this, and I do print some value. Oops, some typo there, right? Let's see what happens here. Okay, when I run this, because my return here doesn't say return something, right? It's going to say a dot primitive return. This is just a outcome that says return, but there's nothing in the return. It's an empty return, right? So you need to be careful when you do a return properly, right? Okay. For the previous examples, the arguments are required, and hence without arguments, the function will not perform as required. This can be avoided if your arguments have default values, right? So then define a function require arguments with two parameters num1 and num2, right? And then call the function by passing two values, 2 and 8 for number 1 and number 2, and then you will get the output. So let's see how this works. So these are, okay, wait, so this is, okay, let's try this first. Let's try one without one, let's try without default. Let's try one without default, then after that we try it with default, okay? So, right, function num1, num2, right? And in this case, cat first argument is, right, num1, E and D, simple, oops, wrong slash. Okay, and then let me copy this and paste it again. Second argument is num2, then call out the function by passing two values. Okay, so in this case, I have no default values, right? I just run it without default values, right? So number 1 is equals to 2, number 2 is assigned to 8. Okay, I'm just going to reg arg number 1 comma number 2. So if I were to run this, first argument is 8. So but then if I were to not give it a value, say if I were to just say num2 equals to 10, right? If I do this, sorry, not equals to, assign it to 10, right? Sorry, let me see. Sorry, not this. I should use equal, because here in functions I need to use equal. So that's a slight deviation. So let me just use equals. Okay, so in this case, I'm already assigning num2 to a function. So here you can't use the assign function. For some reason in functions, you only can use equal. So just be careful about that as well, right? So when I use num2 equals to 10, right, just be careful because num2 will take a default value as 10, right? This is the default value. Here I'm setting this as a default value as 10. The problem here is when, say now, I don't pass in a num2, only pass in a num1. You can see the second argument takes a default value of 10, right? So that's the thing. So if I pass in number 1, right, or if I don't pass in any value, if I run this, it's going to throw error because num1 is a required value. There's no default, right? So I need to pass in number 1 no matter what. I need to pass in a 1 value at least. But number 2 is, or if you have, it's good. If you don't have it, it will just take 10 as the default value. So that's how it works, right? If I have a default value for, say, for num1 as well as 2 and num2 as 10, I can leave this as blank and you'll still print 2 and 10. So that's how default values work. In this case, I will exclude them, right? And just to show you, these are required arguments. So you need to have num1, number 1 and number 2 inputs within it to give you the outputs if they are required, right? If there are no default values. Okay? Okay, when there are situations when the function does not require an argument and you still pass it in, it will also throw an error. So this is the other way around. Here, let's say I use a greet function, basically a very simple function where there's no argument required. You just say cat hello, right? Just a simple cat. Okay, then require username. Let's say for some reason I say I need a username, right? Let me go and copy username from here. You don't have to type it out, right? Okay. So I require username, right? And then I do a greet. Okay, so I do a greet and I pass in person name, but it's wondering this function doesn't have person name, right? So I put John. It's going to say there's an error, unused argument, person name. Why are you passing in a person name when it's not required, right? So those are the kind of errors that you will face. Okay, if you have no input, then you don't pass in anything. When there's an input, you have to pass in, then you have to pass in something, right? So you be careful about those accuracies. There are situations when the function requires an argument and it is not passed in, then you'll throw an error in the process. Then define a function. So this is what I showed you earlier, but anyway, I will do it one more time. So basically here, I'm going to do, oops. Sorry, this is code. Yep. So let me see how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do greet function. So here I explicitly require a name input, right? And I jolly well give a name input, right? I put cat, hello, and I put name input. So here I really need to provide a input, right? And I put end equals to d equals to end, and then I call out the function, right? I just call out greet. But I need to provide a name input. If not, it's going to give me an error, right? So when I run this, it's going to throw me an error. It says there is name input is missing. It's looking for it, but it's not there, right? Name input is missing, so there's a problem, right? There's no default as well, right? Now, the use of keyword argument allows the function to take in parameters based on a parameter match value, right? So how does that work, right? So let's define a function employee that takes in two arguments as input parameters, name and designation. Then the function then uses the cat function to display the two values. So simple. So let's try this. Employee is the function. Function name, and both of these are required. Okay, you cannot not provide them. You need to provide both name, comma, designation, right? With that said, you can call out the function. See, typo error. Designation. Right, okay. So we call out the function employee, right? I pass in name equals to John, right? Designation equals to CEO, right? I can also change the order, right? Need not be this way, right? I can also make it something like this, right? John after, right? And when I run it, in both cases, it give me John, CEO. It works, right? I can also have a default value, right? I use a default arguments to set an argument into a default value. I showed you earlier this. If the argument parameter is not passed in, that's the default value for the default argument that's automatically compiled by the compiler if the caller of the function does not provide it in, right? So then define a function employment. So let's do emp. Oops, sorry, that's not what I wanted it to do. Okay, let's do emp function employee name. This is a required argument. Employee salary, I'm going to set it to 1,200. Sorry, 12,000. 1,200. 12,000. And then I'm going to do cat emp employee name with the dash, right? Comma employee name, right? end equals to /n. And I'm going to do a cat emp employee salary. Let me just, for consistency, I better change this to double quotes. Okay, so double quotes. Okay, this is employee salary. So I can just use IntelliSense to help me with that as well. Right? And then I can pass in emp, the name as Sam. So it's going to give me employee name Sam and employee salary 12,000. because that is the missing value, or that's the value that's not given, right? What if I, right, copy the same thing, copy the same function, but then I give in two values, right? I say EMP, SAM, and then the second value, I set it as 10,000. Now, it already takes employee name SAM and the value as 10,000 because it knows the second value is the second argument, right? Now, there's a default value for default argument that is automatically complied by the compiler if the caller function does not provide it, right? So now, what happens if we switch it around instead, right? This is the tricky part, right? What happens if we do the same thing, but we pass in 10,000 first, and then SAM later? This is a problem because it will take the name as 10,000 and SAM as the salary, which doesn't really make sense. So one way to avoid such a confusion will be to, when you are calling out your function, to be very, see, I already tell you, when I type in employee, when I put tab, it tells me what is the employee salary. It already has the IntelliSense, right? So employee name is Sam, employee salary is 10,000, right? So with that, we can move on to variable length arguments. Okay, so this is not so important, but it's good to know. Okay, I can have variable length variable length arguments, right? So variable length arguments are a bit more where I can have like infinite numbers of values to add. Like, you know, your print function. Your print function actually has, not print function, your cat function actually has a lot. A print function only takes in one print variable, but your cat variable can take in many different print options, right? Many, as in keep, you can put in by separating them by comma, 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 comma. It will just concatenate, put everything together into one print statement, right? Or print one output, one display output, right? You can do something like that here as well. So how do you do that for addition? So this is where you just have to write a function called addition. Okay, and then we use the function keyword. Okay, important here, you need to put 3 dots. 1, 2, 3. So 3 dots indicates this is going to be a variable length argument. So I set my initial add value to 0. Okay, and for num in list, where I'm going to expect 3 dots here, right? I'm going to be expecting 3 dots. So let me just put all this in a bracket for clarity, right? And I know that there's going to be a string add equals to add plus num. So it's going to just keep adding. Okay, at the end of the day, it's just going to print add, and that's going to come out. So let's now try this addition process with 1 and 2, right? And it gives me 3, right? Simple. So I know that it works, right? I can do addition again with more numbers: 5, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now I get 33. So this is where it's a variable length. So you don't have to write num1, num2, num3. This will take as many as possible. You just loop through it and keep adding it. Okay, quick practice. You have two parts to do, right? That's just one part. It's just that you have 2 different statements. So you try it out. Take 5 minutes. Assign a function bursary balance, which takes in 2 arguments: bursary award and cost fees. Set the default value of bursary award value to be 500. The function bursary balance will calculate the value of the difference between bursary award and cost fees. Then if the difference is positive, it will return a statement you have XXX left in your bursary award. If the difference is negative, it will return a statement you have to top up XXX for your cost fees after taking into account your bursary award value. Set the bursary award to default value and cost fees to 600. Then store this statement in the variable my statement, then display the variable my statement output. Okay, on the other hand, set the bursary award to 1,000 and cost fees to 600. Then you see what is the outcome as well, right? Try it out and we will resume very soon. Okay, how do you address this question? So basically, create a function, bursary balance, right? Function, right? And then two values, course fees and bursary award equals to 500. So do be careful that you want to set your fixed, the values that have some value, the bursary award to the end, and the first few values that need required arguments to be at the front, right? So difference is set to bursary award minus course fees, right? If your difference is more than or equals to 0, right? That means you will set a statement, right? That is equals to paste. I'll use the paste function here. You have dollars, right? Difference left in your bursary award, right? As simple as that, right? And then you remember you must return the statement, right? On the other hand, else, remember you have an else statement, right? And in the else statement, you have to do if difference is equals to, so you know that your difference is negative, you want to convert it back to a positive value to show, okay? Statement, again, I'm going to use paste, right? You have to top up dollars, right? Difference for your course fees after taking into account of your bursary award value, right? That is it. After I do that, I close the brackets, right? And then let's go back here, let's enter this, and then don't forget to return the statement. Okay, so far it's okay. And then I need to call out two things. Firstly, my statement is equals to bursary balance, and I'm going to pass in the initial value, which is my course fees, equals to 600, right? And then I'm going to print my statement. Oops, something is wrong here. Let me run this. You have to top up $100 because there is a difference here. Okay, now let me copy this and paste this here. But this time around, it's asking me to set my course fees to 600 and my bursary balance, bursary award, sorry, equals to 1,000. And when I print this, you have $400 left in your bursary award. Right. So far, that's all. Right. It's the same code, it's just running with two different outputs. Okay, finally, moving on. The use of anonymous functions are to create a function on the fly instead of creating one beforehand, right? And then there are simple one-line functions. The keyword function is used to create an anonymous function and can have multiple arguments separated by commas. The anonymous function always returns an object. Okay, so let's see how this works. So let's create bigger. So this is a normal function, right? Function num1, num2. So this is quite standard. If num1 is bigger than num2, return num1, right? If not else, return num2. Simple, right? Okay, so how do we do that? Big num is equals to bigger, right? You pass in two values, 9 and 16, right? And then we can print the value of big num, give you 16, right? As simple as that. But how does an anonymous function, the same can be done for an anonymous function, so how does an anonymous function work? So what you can do is you can just straight away go into bigger, right? You can open a bracket, use the function, num1, num2, right? And then if else, num1 bigger than num2, iturn return num1, if not, return num2. So big num is equals to, is assigned to bigger, right? 9 and 16. All you have to do is print big num. And the answer here is 16. So this is anonymous function. It's down the fly. You can see that if else is not, it's a very different kind of if else statement. So yeah, so that's how it works. Okay, take 5 minutes, assign an anonymous function with the situation sum, anonymous function sum func that takes in two parameters and adds them together and returns the sum value. Okay, so try this out and we will resume very shortly. Okay, how do we solve this? It's quite standard. Sum func is basically, as I said, an anonymous function. Open a bracket, pass in function, num1, num2, right? And then, as simple as it is, you just have to num1 plus num2. That's it, right? And then you just have to do a sum. Oops. Sorry, I did not close it. Is it? Did I close it? Yeah, I close it. Why is it not closing? Yep, I think I closed it. Sorry, I think there is a comma here. Let me see. Yep. Nope. Sorry, just a moment. Just let me run this. Okay. Know why? Some value, some func is equals to 5 and 6. And I want to print. Why is it throwing me? Okay, so as you can see, when I do this function on the fly, I take function num1, num2, and I just add num1 plus num2, and it will just give me some value of 11. Right, it's as simple as that. It's not. It's kind of a single line anonymous function. Whether you want to use it or not is up to you. But I personally prefer using functions. Unless you really are doing it on the fly, then you can use anonymous functions. With that said, that's it. That's the end of this segment. Until next segment, see ya.